Hello everyone, we are now back for Lab 2. It has been about 4 minutes since I stopped Lab 1. Recording worked just fine, so we're going to keep plowing ahead. So in Lab 2 we looked at two crops, right? Two crop plants when we were out at one of UGA's agricultural research locations. The first of these is alfalfa. It's a legume. Like a lot of those little legumes, it's going to have those rounded leaves. The tips are typically going to have three. Won't have purple flowers right now. And I certainly don't know where to find alfalfa unless I'm stealing it from some farmer. So know what it looks like. Probably not one you need to spend too much time on. And it's going to be the same with our cotton plant. When we saw them, they were looking more like these two right here. But now, as the cotton has been picked and everything, it's going to have been defoliated. It'll look quite dead. And again, I don't really know where to get cotton. Know what it looks like. Very unique leaves, beautiful flowers when it's in bloom. I don't think that's one that you need to have memorized by heart what it looks like. Let's move on to some of the ones that we're more likely to see. So we have bitterweed, all right, and this is going to be another one of those yellow flowers among our goldenrods, wing stems, things like that. And it's going to have a flower that I personally think looks a little more like something you'd see in, say, an aster. And sneezeweed, bitter sneezeweed, bitterweed, it's going to look, it's going to have those similar things to dog fennel, right? Those little wispy leaves going up the stalk. Not going to be as tall as dog fennel. It likely won't be as full as dog fennel either. Much lower to the ground. And nobody really likes bitterweed, animals included. Yeah. So we get to fireweed or burnweed. And this is the one that I said be very careful not to confuse with thistle, because when we looked at thistle before, right, there were spikes coming out of all the leaves. These leaves still look sort of angry, right? They've got, the leaves are spiked, but they're not going to have actual, like, large, pokey things coming out of them. And when I was talking about that fuzz coming out, right, it looks a lot fuzzier, right? It doesn't look like the remnants of a flower as much, and it'll have these buds that are very thin and relatively tall. I sort of think they look like Parcheesi pieces. These are the mnemonic devices I like to use, but use what works for you. And so the biggest thing I want you to remember is this is not thistle. It's not a type of thistle. It has longer leaves, less spikes. Yeah, wouldn't want to put in your mouth, but you wouldn't be fearing, spikes in your gums. All right, so then horseweed, horsetail looks a lot like fireweed in that it has the same buds, right? But where these buds on fireweed have that flatter bottom, like that Parcheesi piece, these buds are going to be rounder, right? And the leaves aren't going to have these spikes. You can see here, it just has a lot more stalks going up instead of leaves running the entire gamut, right? Let's see. Similar fuzz, and so yeah, the way that you're going to differentiate this from burnweed is the shape of that leaf, how many leaves there are, and then shoot, did I say the shape of the bud again? But yes, those are the three things that are going to help you differentiate between those two plants. Alright, so we get into our morning glory. Our true morning glories are Ipomoeas. And there are so many species of morning glories. I think 13 are native to the southeast, but I think there's over 1,000 species all around the world. And these are another one of those ones where I don't think you should be killing yourself trying to figure out which exact species it is. Just know it's a morning glory and know the difference between these true morning glories and then our small flower morning glory. And there are some big taxonomic differences that we'll get to when we get to small flower. And I actually just wanted to point out Ipomoea cottonea. This is one I've seen in a lot of your plant collections. It has a bright orange flower, looks like a little trumpet, And a lot of people have asked about that one in particular. That's the species that you found. And these 4 species right here are just the 4 that are most common in the southeast. So if you found one and you're still trying to identify it just for your plant collection, I'd start with these 4, see if it compares well to any of them. All right, getting into pigweed, or it's also called amaranth. This is a very big genus of species, and some amaranths just go all the way up to family. The pigweed that we're looking at, though, I think the leaves are shaped a little like basil, right? Especially in this guy here. Don't eat them like you would basil. And they're going to have these sort of tall spires of almost like a fuzzy looking flower. Yeah, lower to the ground typically it's not going to get huge, and that's going to be your pigweed. Alright, pokeweed or pokeberry. This one is very easy to recognize, especially this time of the year, because the stem is this like deep blood red, purpley color. Oftentimes they'll have berries, but most of the ones that I've been seeing around have already had the berries eaten off. Birds love these plants, and they can get very large, but they can also stay relatively small. Large leaves, and some of them I've also seen foraged at this point. A lot of animals just love this stuff. This is the plant I poisoned myself with. Please do not eat it. Be careful if you choose to touch it. But pokeweed's going to be very easy this time of year because of that red stem. Alright, so ragweed. Ragweed, I think, sort of has leaves like a carrot. If you know what carrot leaves look like, right? Pretty distinct for the Ambrosia genus. Someone posted a really nice picture of another member of the Ambrosia genus in the group chat a couple of days ago. And so that's going to be a good way to clue yourself in that it's likely a ragweed if you have these sort of carrot-looking leaves. And I should specify that carrots are not in this genus, but the leaves sort of look like that, right? They're going to have these separate parts going up and thinning out. Ragweeds will also have a flower that I think sort of looks like the pigweed flower. Not super similar, but similar idea in that it's mostly green, narrowing up to the top, but these are very easy to tell apart because remember, pigweed will have those more like basally shaped leaves, and ragweed will have your carrot leaves. Alright, white clover, another fun legume, a nitrogen fixer, and if you've ever gone looking for 4-leaf clovers, I'm sure you know white clover, 3 leaves, unless I find a 4-leaf one, but I'm not going to look that long. Rounded leaves, all at equal angles to each other. I'm sure we've all seen these underfoot. Alright, Bahia grass. This is going to be the first of our pasphalums. And this one, I think, is the easiest one to remember because it has that peace sign. And so it's always going to be those 2 out at an angle. The seed heads have been getting pretty full when I've seen them lately, and I think that that's one that a lot of you have a pretty good grip on. Bahia, it's the peace sign. Alright, Bermuda grass. So this one, another one of those grasses, and one you probably talked about in lab on Monday. Bermuda grass is going to have that seed head which just sort of goes out in all directions. I just think of it, oh shoot, if you were to take your hand and just sort of pop it out, I really wish I had camera on for this, but if you just take your hand, pop all the fingers out, flay them all out, that's the seed head of Bermuda grass. Crabgrass is going to have a similar look to that, right? That popping out the fingers, but where Bermuda grass, all of them are going to be coming from that one point, right? See here? Crabgrass is going to have them coming out from multiple points on its stem toward the top. See how here, there's some connected here, some connected here? That's going to be what you're looking for with crabgrass, where they're not all coming out from the exact same point. Let's see, and several species of crabgrass as well. This is just one of those ones that we have the genus for. All right, fescue. So fescue, we looked at this in lab last Friday. It'll have that big grassy clump at the bottom, and then as it comes up, and this is going to be one of the ones that, because it's not a pasphalum, because there's no super easy trick to remembering it, make sure you look at, like, your purple top and know the difference between these. But that said, very different looking seed heads. This one will typically stay, if there is a seed head, it'll stay closer into the stem, whereas purple top is going to be exploding out all the way up. Foxtail grass, that one's easy enough. It looks sort of like a foxtail. It's going to be that fuzzy one that I don't know. I always sort of thought it looked like a fuzzy cattail, right? Your wetland plant, except for much smaller, and it's going to be that fuzzy one, but it's still going to have that hot dog-like tube, or that foxtail-like tube. That'll be your foxtail grass. Only one, and just down to genus. So if you see a grass like this, it's going to be foxtail grass. All right, Johnson grass. And this is going to be the one that I really want you to be looking at pictures to really know the difference between Johnson grass and purple top. Purple top is going to have typically seeds all around it, right? Almost in like a circular pattern, I guess. Whereas this one, the seeds are going to be not only longer, and I'm going to see if this works. I'm going to go back to lab 1. Hopefully my computer catches this. So here is your purple top, right? The seeds are going to go sort of down, and they're going to be disjointed from each other. They're not going to be like all bunched together. Whereas, shoot, this is actually sort of hard to describe, and this is still one that I have trouble with, and so that's why I want to make sure that these are two that we're making a differentiation between. And so I guess my best advice right now is to know the difference between those seed heads. Alright, lovegrass. This is one that I know you all are great at. It's going to be these tiny little circle seeds. And panic grass has similar seeds, that low panic grass. And we just talked about that last Friday. But the low panic grass is going to be much smaller, right? If you see these on a big stalk, especially if they're purple, because purple panic grass is Eragrostis hirsuta. But most of you all have been really good at identifying this. It's going to be your grass with these tiny little circle seeds, and called love grass because they fall up and work their way up the pant legs. So that's a pretty nice and easy grass to catch. Alright, so Vacey grass, our second pasphalum we learned, and it's going to have similar seed heads to your Bahia grass, right, where they're all clumped together. And remember, the way to remember this one is it's lazy. It'll always be sort of drooping over. Alright, so the China berry. Alright, so let's be careful not to confuse China berry with Chinese privet. It's going to have leaves right next to each other in the stem coming out from the same point, and they're also going to be leathery, but unlike Chinese privet, they're going to be pointed. And they sort of have always looked like, what's the word? Sumac leaves to me, just sort of in their orientation. But yeah, just make sure you know the difference between this and Chinese privet. They're going to be those pointed leathery leaves. There'll always be one leaf right at the end, which is not something that you see in Chinese privet, right? There won't be that ending leaf. Alright, round leaf greenbrier. Different from sawbriar just by the shape of the leaves, but they're going to be one of those vines with the little thorns sticking out the sides, leathery leaves, and they're going to just be the rounded version, right? The sawbriar being the one that sort of looks like Oh, I mean, it has the lobes that comes out and it ends in a point, and we'll see that as we move through the labs. All right, St. John's wort is going to be sort of like a woody little shrub, and it has these nubby leaves. I haven't seen any lately with flowers still on, but when they are blooming, they have that yellow flower. And the only one I think, just make sure you know the difference between this, is the Serratia lespedeza, but this is going to be much shorter, and it'll likely have, several of the same stalks coming from farther up the plant. The Serratia lespedeza is very long, coming straight from the base of the plant. Alright, so we are all through Lab 2 again. If you want any more clarification, if something I said wasn't clear, any of that, please let me know. I'm going to stop recording on that one, and we'll start on Lab 3 soon.